It was a cold October evening when I first arrived in Millfield. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the town. I had just bought an old house at the end of Maple Street, a place that looked like it belonged in a horror movie. The windows were cracked and the paint was peeling. As I stepped inside, the air felt heavy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I was excited to start fresh, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The house creaked and groaned, every sound echoing through the empty halls. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just an old building settling. That first night, I unpacked boxes, trying to make the place feel like home. I set up my bed, and as darkness fell, I settled in, hoping for a good night's sleep. But sleep didn't come. The silence was thick, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves outside. As I lay in bed, I began to hear whispers. At first, they were faint, like the wind brushing through the trees. I strained to listen, but the words slipped away, just out of reach. I sat up, heart racing, and turned on the lamp. The room was empty, but the whispers grew louder, filling my mind with dread. Help me, they seemed to say. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. I turned off the light and pulled the covers over my head, hoping to block out the sound. But the whispers didn't stop. They echoed in my mind, growing more urgent. I could almost make out words, but they faded away before I could grasp them. I knew I had to find out what was happening. The next day, I explored the house, looking for clues. I opened every door, peered into every corner. In the attic, I found dusty boxes filled with old clothes and toys. Among them was a small ornate mirror. I wiped away the dust and looked into it, but the reflection was strange. It felt like someone was behind me watching. I quickly turned around, but the attic was empty. Shaking off the feeling, I decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. The townspeople were friendly but whispered about the house. Strange things happened there, one woman said, her eyes wide with fear. That night, I prepared myself for the whispers. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening intently. The air was still, and then I heard it, a soft voice calling my name. Help me. Please, I jumped out of bed, heart pounding, and rushed to the living room. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, almost alive. In the living room, I noticed a door slightly ajar. I hadn't seen it before. My curiosity got the better of me, and I pushed it open. Inside was a small room, dark and musty, filled with old furniture covered in sheets. In the corner stood a trunk, old and weathered. I approached it, a mix of fear and excitement bubbling inside me. I opened the trunk and found old photographs, yellowed with age. One photograph caught my eye, a woman with hollow eyes, staring directly at me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and the whispers returned, swirling around me. Help me. Find the truth, they echoed. I stumbled back, slamming the trunk shut. I knew I had to uncover the mystery of this house. The next day, I began my search for answers. I visited the local library, digging through old newspapers and records. I learned about the family that had once lived in my house. They had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of sorrow. The woman in the photograph was named Sarah. She had been the heart of the family, but something terrible had happened. As I read, I felt a connection to her, as if she were reaching out from the past. That night, I returned to the hidden room. The trunk sat waiting for me, and I opened it again, determined to learn more. I found letters written by Sarah, filled with love for her family, but also fear. Something is watching us, one letter said. I can feel it in the walls as the days passed. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. I began to see shadows moving in the corners of my vision. I could feel a presence in the house, something dark and malevolent. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. One night, I was jolted awake by a loud crash. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and rushed to the living room. The trunk was open, its contents scattered across the floor. The photographs lay face down, but one was turned up a picture of Sarah, her face twisted in fear. Help me, the whisper screamed. I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, and I knew I had to confront whatever was haunting me. I spent the next day preparing for a confrontation. I gathered candles, salt, and anything I thought might help. That night, I lit the candles and called out into the darkness. I want to help you, Sarah. Show yourself. The shadows thickened, swirling around me. I felt a chill run down my spine as a figure appeared, a woman with hollow eyes, just like in the photograph. You must help me, she whispered, her voice echoing in my mind. I cannot rest until the truth is known. What happened to you? I asked, trembling. I was taken, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, by something dark. It feeds on fear. I felt a surge of determination. I will help you find peace, I promise. I researched ways to banish the darkness that haunted the house. I learned about a ritual that could free trapped spirits. That night, I set everything up in the hidden room, the trunk at the center. I lit the candles and began to chant the words I had memorized. The air grew heavy and the shadows danced wildly. I could feel the presence growing stronger, pushing against me. You cannot do this, it roared, a voice like thunder. But I pressed on, calling out to Sarah, I am here for you. We will break this curse together. The shadows twisted and writhed, fighting against the light of the candles. I felt a pull, as if something was trying to drag me down into darkness. But I held firm, focusing on Sarah's spirit. Suddenly, the room erupted in chaos. The candles flickered violently, and the shadows screamed in rage. Leave this place, I shouted, my voice ringing out against the noise. In that moment, Sarah's spirit appeared beside me, glowing with light. You have the strength to defeat it, she urged. With renewed determination, I raised my hands and shouted the final words of the ritual. The shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing as if in pain. Light burst forth, illuminating the room. The darkness shattered, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The air grew warm, and the whispers faded into silence. As dawn broke, I sat in the hidden room, exhausted but at peace. The trunk was closed, and the air felt lighter. I knew that Sarah had finally found her way home. In the days that followed, the house felt different. The heavy presence was gone, replaced by a sense of calm. I spent time restoring the old place, filling it with warmth and light. I would often think of Sarah and her family, remembering the darkness that had once consumed them. I made it my mission to share their story, ensuring they would never be forgotten. Years later, I still live in that house at the end of Maple Street. It has become a home filled with laughter and love. But sometimes when the night is still, I can hear a soft whisper in the wind. Thank you, it seems to say. And I know that I am never truly alone. The spirits of those who came before us linger, guiding us through the darkness.